Is it possible to be free of attachment and in turn be free of all the suffering that attachment brings and yet be able to love? The place where I live in the Himalayas in India, there is this common sight one sees when people are going to work in the fields or to cut grass. There's this little lamb or a goat who is following them very anxiously so that it doesn't lose sight of the shepherd. And the shepherd doesn't even have to look behind to check whether the goat is following or not. They know that it is following them. Because the goat finds deep safety and pleasure in the company of the shepherd. The shepherd provides food, shelter. So the shepherd is the place of deep security for the goat. And something similar is our relationship when it is attachment. Not only romantic relationship, but even with family, with friends, with our job, because that is where we are finding that pleasure and that security. And one day when the goat is ready, the shepherd is going to sell it for what it can give, or it is going to be used in a village wedding. And similarly, in our relationships, when the person we are with, who is also a goat inside, looking for the same things within us, finds those things in another person, we feel betrayed that they left us, because we had this mutual contract between both of us that we are going to provide this safety to each other. And with this deep betrayal, this deep hurt, we carry on into another relationship. Some people just don't want to get attached. They just want the pleasure. They have left the expectation of security. They just want the pleasure. And so we move on in our lives. The question here is that, is there something more than the goat inside of us? Or are we that is our only potential? Because then we are, as they say, stuck in the first two chakras, where we are just looking for the basic physiological security and the psychological safety and pleasure. We are never going to find the realm called love, which cannot be found in attachment. And so there are people, of course, who recognize this. That's okay, this attachment is causing me suffering. They go to the opposite side. They go to the detachment side. They say, I'm not going to be attached with anyone or anything. I'm going to be totally detached. And they break off with any possible deep relationship they can make. They go to an ashram. They give into a philosophy or a practice or a belief, and that becomes their refuge. That becomes their shepherd. And now the shepherd is totally invisible, so they can manipulate the shepherd as they want, and he's not going to leave. And such a relationship is more dangerous and more lifeless. And that is why you will see that such so-called spiritual people look more lifeless than at least the people who are heartbroken. So the question here is that, can we find out in our daily life, without resorting to an imaginary practice or a refuge, that is there a way to relate without being attached? To deeply relate without being attached. And there is no positive practice that can lead us to this understanding. The understanding can only happen when we see ourselves in relationship, when we see ourselves, how we look at our job, how we look at our relationships, how we are depending on the future, how we are moving every day in that deep dependence on the future in our relationship, on the security that we are seeking in our daily life. And when we can recognize all of that, how our mind is working, how cunningly we are seeking only for ourselves in the pretense of love, how our being nice also is not really being nice. We are wanting something in exchange. When the real face of ours is revealed to ourselves, when we recognize the goat within ourselves, when we don't blame the outside scenario, but we see how we ourselves are creating, then we try to relate in a way which is not dependent on mutual exchange. And the only way to relate like that is the relating of the present, where we are sharing our deep presence and whatever we have with the person we are relating with. Then you realize that there's a flower inside you which you are seeking everywhere. There's this home inside you which you are seeking everywhere. And the moment you see the flower within yourself, you recognize the fragrance in others. And whenever you meet a person with that fragrance, you go deeper in your quest for love. And such a relationship is not based on expectation, on a contract, but a deep exploration of love. And such a relationship is the relating of freedom. Then the goat has left the shepherd, gone into the wild and found out that it is not the goat. And that is the danger of love. That is the risk that love entails, because the goat has to go in the wild. The goat has to find out by going in the wild whether it can survive in this present moment without depending on the fake security of thought. And the day this is revealed to oneself, one just looks back and sees that all the fake attachment one had, at all the dreams that one was weaving, binding oneself to. And such a life is a life beyond the lower realm. It is moving higher in the realm of love.